There are moments in life when we meet a stranger and feel as if we have known them for a long time. No logical explanation, no clear connection in the past, just a deep, certain, undeniable feeling that our soul has touched theirs somewhere, far beyond time and space. The story of the invisible thread begins from such moments, when the fragile but durable threads of fate silently weave together encounters that cannot be explained by ordinary logic. Once upon a time, in a small village nestled on the side of a mountain, there were two people who grew up just a few streets apart. They did not know each other, nor did they have any reason to meet. Life pushed them down separate paths, seemingly never to intersect. Yet, strangely, their footsteps often happened to pass through the same square at the same time, stopping by the same stalls and passing each other like nameless shadows. One day, when the rain suddenly poured down, they took shelter under the small awning of an old coffee shop. Their eyes met, and in that moment, the whole world held its breath. No greetings, no introductions, just a dense silence, as if two souls recognized each other from previous lives. Have you ever felt like that? A feeling that cannot be put into words, a familiarity that goes beyond what the eyes see, the ears hear. It is not just a coincidence. It is a whisper of the universe, a subtle signal that there are connections that have been prearranged, waiting for the right moment to reveal. In today's world where relationships come and go like the wind, the ability to recognize a true, deep and lasting connection is more precious than ever. But to recognize those signals requires a heart quiet enough to listen, a soul sensitive enough to feel, and a will strong enough to believe in things invisible to the naked eye. This video is not simply about love or romance. It is an invitation to embark on a deeper journey, a journey of listening to the silent calls of the heart, a journey of recognizing the small but powerful signs that the universe sends when two souls are destined to find each other. When we have the courage to believe in the invisible, we will realize that every great encounter in life has its reason. Ask yourself, are you ready to open your heart to recognize those threads of destiny? Do you have the courage to step beyond doubt, beyond fear, to recognize the call of a love that comes not from need but from the awakening of the soul? If your heart flutters at these words, stay. The magical journey is beginning. To understand the invisible connections between two people, we need to step into the world of analytical psychology, where Carl Jung left an immortal legacy. In Jung's light, seemingly random encounters carry deep meaning, guided by invisible forces operating below the surface of consciousness. Jung called this phenomenon synchronicity. Not all coincidences are random. There are moments when two events occur in parallel without any causal connection, but with deep symbolic meaning for the person experiencing them. Synchronicity serves as a reminder that the inner world and the outer world are not separate. When two souls connect in this way, their meeting is not just a physical event, but also a manifestation of an underlying order, where meaning transcends reason. You may have seen someone many times in unexpected places. Maybe you've dreamed about a stranger before you've met them in real life. Or maybe amid a sea of faces there's a gaze that makes you feel like you're seeing yourself. That's not an illusion. That's synchronicity, the subtle voices of the soul and the universe speaking at the same time, inviting you to realize that something bigger is going on. But Jung didn't stop at synchronicity. He also pointed to another profound mechanism, projection. In the early stages of a strong connection, we don't actually see the other person. Instead, we project onto them our own images, wishes, desires, and fears. They become a mirror of parts of our soul that we're not yet aware of. You love someone not just because of who they are, but because they awaken parts of yourself that have been forgotten or rejected. Intense attraction is often a sign of a deep projection process taking place. And it is through this process that we have the opportunity to see, face, and heal the invisible wounds in our souls. But this journey is not only about light, it also brings us closer to the shadow. According to Jung, the shadow is the collection of all the qualities, emotions, memories, and desires that we dare not acknowledge, because they do not fit the image we want to build of ourselves. Meeting someone who brings up strong, even unpleasant or confusing emotions is not a sign that the relationship is wrong. On the contrary, it can be an invitation to delve deeper into our own shadow. Indeed, true love does not make us comfortable at first. It touches our deepest places, evoking both light and darkness, both desire and fear. A relationship that is truly transformative does not come from fulfilling all our desires, but from fostering the process of growth and healing. Finally, Jung introduces an important pair of symbols, the anima and the animus. The anima is the archetypal image of the feminine in the male psyche. The animus is the archetypal image of the masculine in the female psyche. But more than biological sex, these are two forces that represent the softness and strength, intuition and reason, emotion and reason that exist within each of us. When the anima and the animus are not recognized and integrated, we tend to look outside ourselves for fulfillment. We fall in love with someone because we feel that they bring something missing to us. But when these archetypes are gradually integrated into consciousness, love is no longer a search for fulfillment, but an abundant sharing between two people who have found inner wholeness. Synchronicity, projection, shadow, anima, and animus. These Jungian gems are the keys to understanding why some encounters shake our inner world. They are not just love affairs, they are doorways to the deepest awakenings our souls can experience. Understanding this foundation, we can move forward with more open eyes, more steadfast hearts, and more courageous souls to recognize when we are standing in the presence of an unbreakable bond woven by the invisible hands of destiny. Synchronicity doesn't knock loudly. It comes like a gentle breeze, passing through the most ordinary moments of life, leaving a subtle trace that only those who listen can notice. When two souls are destined to meet, synchronicity becomes not just a coincidence, but a continuous signal, like a beacon in the fog. Sign 1. Strange coincidences that keep recurring. Not all coincidences have meaning. But when a person keeps popping into your life through unexpected circumstances, on crowded streets, at unscheduled events, even in strange dreams, it's no longer a coincidence. Each time, it feels more than just a surprise, but a quiet urge, as if someone or something is trying to draw you closer to them. You happen to think about them, and right then, their message arrives. You make a last-minute change in your plans, and somehow you run into them in an unlikely place. The repetition of these coincidences, coupled with the sense that something bigger is going on, is one of the first and clearest signs of synchronicity. Sign #2. The inner sense that this meeting has higher meaning. When you meet someone whose mind and heart instantly resonate, it's not just chemistry, it's your soul recognizing their soul. A deep intuition kicks in, like a vague but sure reminder. Pay attention. This meeting is not a coincidence. You feel as if you've reached a crucial crossroads in your life's journey, though you can't quite explain why. Their eyes make you see not just them, but yourself, the parts of yourself that have been forgotten, the desires that haven't been formed, the wounds that haven't been healed. The feeling that their presence carries a mission, a lesson, an awakening, is a powerful sign that synchronicity is at work. Sign 3. A sense of familiarity from the first meeting. There are people who take a long time to understand and love, but there are also people who, with just the first look, feel like home. Not a familiarity from experience, but an understanding that goes beyond language and reason. When you meet someone and feel like you have known them before, as if your soul recognizes them before your mind can analyze them, it is a rare and precious sign. Communication becomes smooth, even in silence. The silences are not forced, but filled with presence. Time seems to lose its meaning. An hour with them can feel like a long journey. This familiarity is not an illusion. It is the echo of deep connections, perhaps originating from the deepest layers of the collective consciousness, or from soul journeys, unexplained by current knowledge. Whatever the source, this recognition opens the door to a kind of connection that few conventional relationships can match. Sign 4. Sharing symbols and messages from the unconscious. It's not just unexpected encounters or feelings of familiarity that are signals. When two people share recurring symbols, special numbers, songs that happen to play at just the right moment, images that appear in dreams, it's their shared unconscious at work. Maybe you're both drawn to a particular symbol, a number called 1111 that keeps appearing, a butterfly that appears when you think of each other, or an emotionally matching line of a song, heard at just the right moment. These symbols shouldn't be dismissed as meaningless coincidences. They're the language of the soul, the way the deepest levels of the conscious communicate when words fail. When you and another person repeatedly experience such symbolic coincidences, know that you're being guided. And sometimes, to understand that message, it is not by analyzing, but by listening, by being open without prejudice, letting intuition guide the way. When the signs of synchronicity appear in succession, and when your heart flutters slightly at events that seem ordinary but are filled with deep emotions, know that you are standing at a door not to be seen, but to walk through, to enter a journey where every encounter, every glance, every symbol carries within it a subtle lesson of the soul. And that is only the beginning, because synchronicity, however magical, is only an invitation. The door will truly open when you are brave enough to go deep within yourself, when you realize that connection is not just about finding others, but also about finding the deepest parts of yourself. If the synchronicities open the magical door to a soul connection, it is the emotional challenges and inner reactions that truly test and deepen that connection. Because true love is not only present in the moments of light, but also in the way two people walk through the dark places of the soul together. Sign 5. Relationships promote spiritual growth and awakening. Not all relationships are deeply transformative, but when you meet the right person, their presence becomes a powerful catalyst for spiritual growth. Old habits, unhealed wounds, limiting beliefs about yourself, all are suddenly challenged in the light of the relationship. You begin to see yourself more clearly in their reflection. Parts of yourself you have been avoiding are now exposed, not to hurt you, but to let you know it is time to heal. A destined relationship is more than just a temporary emotional need. It forces you to grow, to change, to get closer to your truest self. Love like that isn't always sweet. Sometimes it's long nights of struggling with your deepest fears, painfully frank conversations, and an irresistible urge to step outside your comfort zone. But through that pain, the soul is cleansed, and love becomes more real than ever. Sign 6. They awaken strong emotional responses. You may have met people who made you feel good, who were nice but who never touched your deepest level. But when you're faced with someone who truly connects with your soul, they will stir up strong, unexpected emotional responses in you. It's not always love. Sometimes it's anger that you can't explain. Sometimes it's fear of loss that's out of proportion to the circumstances. Sometimes jealousy, even when your mind tells you there's nothing to worry about. These feelings arise not because the other person has done something wrong, but because they have touched your wounds, your primal wounds. This is not a sign that the relationship is toxic. On the contrary, it is a signal that the connection is awakening your deepest unconscious, forcing you to recognize and heal. These powerful emotions are the gateway to inner freedom, if you have the courage to walk through them. Sign 7. You see your flaws reflected in the man. There is a profound psychological phenomenon Jung described, shadowing. In a spiritual relationship, shadowing occurs on a very subtle level. You may notice that the things that bother you in the other person, their stubbornness, their controllingness, their insecurity, are also traits you once had in yourself, or were unconsciously rejecting. A truly powerful relationship does not hide the truth. It is like a mirror that shines all the way to the bottom. You see not only your own beauty in the other person's eyes, but also the dark sides you once wanted to hide. When they act in a way that frustrates or disappoints you, ask yourself, what does this reflect in me? Recognize this not to blame yourself, but to embrace yourself with honesty and love, because only when we can accept our whole selves, light and dark, can we truly love another person with freedom and authenticity. Sign 8. Crises happen but become stepping stones to growth. No soul journey is smooth from beginning to end. A destined relationship will, at some point, go through a crisis. Differences, misunderstandings, pain, even seemingly irreparable silences can all appear. But what separates a destined relationship from ordinary relationships is how the two people face and overcome that crisis. Instead of blaming or running away, they choose to stay, talk, and dig deeper. They realize that a crisis is not the end, but an opportunity to transform. An argument can reveal old wounds that need to be healed. A temporary separation can force each person to find themselves before continuing to walk together. Temporary disorientation is not failure, but a necessary transition to take the relationship to a new level. In every crisis, the soul is tested. Do you have the courage to love not only the sweet parts of the other person, but also the darkest and most fragile and vulnerable corners? Do you have enough faith to believe that, even when all that is easy is gone, what remains is an invisible thread that is strong and unbreakable? If the answer is yes, then those very challenges will become precious stones, sacred marks marking the common journey of two souls awakening together. If emotional challenges help us see more clearly the movements of our hearts, then the journey of facing the darkness and reflecting on the true self is the ultimate test of the depth and authenticity of a soul connection. Not everyone is ready to enter this stage, because it requires the courage to look directly at the deepest, most vulnerable parts of the soul and of the other person. Sign 9. You feel unconditional acceptance, even when you know each other's shadows. A true spiritual relationship does not require perfection. It does not require the other person to always be right, always beautiful, or always strong. On the contrary, when love is truly rooted in the soul, it carries with it the ability to see both the light and the dark in the other person, and still choose to stay. You see the cracks in the other person's heart, the fears, the insecurities, the mistakes of the past, and instead of judging, you find yourself softening with compassion. You don't love them in spite of their darkness. You love them more fully because of it. Because you understand, darkness is not a mistake, but an indispensable part of the process of growing and perfecting a soul. Likewise, when you dare to reveal your wounds, your mistakes, your most fragile aspects to your partner, and instead of leaving, they choose to stay with you, in silence or in understanding, that is an unmistakable sign of a deeply healing love. Sign 10. You recognize your self-sabotaging tendencies and work through them together. One of the subtlest manifestations of darkness is self-sabotage. When faced with true love, many people unconsciously develop defense mechanisms: doubt, withdrawal, hurting before being hurt, or building invisible walls to avoid dependence. If in this relationship you have ever felt scared when things got too good, found yourself wanting to push the other person away for no apparent reason, then understand that this is not a sign that you are in the wrong place. It is a sign that this love has touched the deepest pain, the scars from the past that have not yet been healed. A soul connection is not where everything goes smoothly from the beginning. It is where you face yourself in your most naked state. And more importantly, it is where you and your partner learn to recognize, share, and overcome those self-sabotaging mechanisms together. When the other person does not run away from unreasonable anger, does not give up when you close your heart, but instead talks with you, untangles with you, rebuilds trust with you, then you know that you are in a relationship not only to love, but also to heal and rebirth. Sign 11. You see yourself reflected in the other person's behavior. One of the most profound characteristics of a soul connection is a powerful mirroring ability. Your soulmate doesn't just walk alongside you on the surface of life. They also unconsciously mirror the hidden parts of you, both beautiful and broken. When you see the qualities you love most, courage, compassion, creativity, reflected in their eyes, you feel a sense of connection. But when you see your own habits, fears, and limitations reflected in the way they act or react, it's a precious opportunity for self-reflection. This mirroring isn't always pleasant. Sometimes it's painful, disappointing, or even infuriating. But if you have the courage to look deeper, you'll find that each moment is a subtle lesson about yourself. When your partner acts in a way that frustrates you, ask yourself, what part of me is this touching? When they make you anxious or doubtful, ask yourself, is this a current fear or an old wound that is resurfacing? Through this reflection, the relationship becomes a sacred school where every action, every reaction, every emotion is material for self-awareness and growth. And in that process, love is no longer a fleeting emotion, but a journey of deepest self-discovery. There are connections that from the very first moment do not belong to this physical world. They do not obey the logic of time, are not limited by space, and cannot be interfered with or controlled by reason. They belong to a deeper level, where the soul recognizes itself in another soul, and where love becomes a reunion rather than a beginning. Sign 12. You feel a connection that transcends time, space, and reason. When you meet someone with whom you have a connection that cannot be explained by ordinary reasons, when their presence evokes in you feelings like longing for something very old, very far away, then you are standing before a connection that transcends all tangible limits. You do not need a long time to build understanding. It is present from the very first moment. You do not need many words to express what you are feeling. Eyes, gestures, and even silences are enough to communicate. There is a silent but strong current between you and that person, as if two rivers from distant sources have now converged, not for the first time, but as a return, after a long journey of separation. You may be in two faraway places, living seemingly unrelated lives, but every time you meet again, all distances disappear. There is no awkwardness of new encounters, only depth, warmth, as if you were continuing a story that began long ago. You may also feel that the bond has not diminished, despite being apart for a long time. That person does not need to appear every day to hold a place in your heart, because their presence is not in superficial conversations, but is engraved in the invisible layers of consciousness. The transcendence of this bond is also reflected in the fact that you and they often experience uncanny moments of synchronicity, thinking of each other at random times, dreaming of similar images, or sensing each other's moods without having to ask. In such a bond, space cannot hinder the connection, time cannot dull the empathy, and reason cannot stop the silent call from one soul to another. The thing is, such a relationship is not always easy. Because of the depth of this connection, the lessons you have to go through are equally profound. There will be times when you feel overwhelmed, scared, or even doubtful. Is this real? But it is in those moments that the test of trust begins. Soul love does not demand possession, does not demand control. It invites you to let go, to trust in the invisible bond that is stronger than any commitment. Because when love is woven from the deepest layers of being, it doesn't need to cling to survive. It stands on its own, even in silence and waiting. Perhaps the most magical thing about a connection that transcends time and space is the sense of peace it brings. You don't have to constantly prove it. You don't have to measure every action, every word, because underneath it all, you know, not with reason, but with a deep awareness that this bond is real. When you find someone who makes you feel this way, know that you have met not just a partner, but a deep part of yourself reflected out into the world. And that relationship, if nurtured with sincerity, understanding and patience, becomes one of the most sacred experiences a soul can have on this earthly journey. Because true love, love that transcends time and space, is not a story of unrealistic dreams. It is a return to oneself, to the soul that we have been searching for through many reincarnations. It is no coincidence that before meeting the right person, we often have to go through a long journey of facing and healing ourselves. At the heart of these experiences, Jung pointed out two core archetypes that exist within each of us, the anima and the animus. They do not simply represent biological masculinity or femininity, but rather the two poles of energy, emotion and reason, intuition and action, that operate within each person's soul. The anima is the feminine soul in the male soul, intuitive, understanding, sensitive, and soft. The animus is the masculine soul in the female soul, rational, determined, strong, and analytical. Each of us carries both elements within us in varying proportions. When one pole is repressed or denied, we feel lacking, insecure, and unconsciously seek to fill that gap in another. It is this lack of inner harmony that leads us into relationships based on the need for compensation. We love not because we want to share wholeness, but because we want someone else to fill our void. But such love, however intense, is often only temporary, because no one but ourselves can complete the unfinished parts of our souls. The real journey begins when we return within, in dialogue with our own anima or animus. When the man dares to touch tenderness, when the woman dares to embrace her inner strength, when reason and emotion are no longer in opposition but begin to harmonize, we become an increasingly full and profound being. And it is in this state of balance that we become ready to meet. No longer looking for salvation from the outside, we enter into a relationship not to be filled, but to share. Love then is no longer a demand, an expectation, or a possession, but becomes the natural flow of two independent, yet intertwined souls. The person we meet when we have reached this stage of inner harmony will not come to heal our wounds, but will cherish and enrich our journey. They will not be a crutch for us to lean on, but a companion, someone we can freely love, with a full heart, no longer out of fear of loneliness or lack. Such love, born from the harmony of the anima and animus in each person, is a rare love. It is not just an emotion, it is the meeting of two mature, ripe energies, and therefore it can endure through changes, challenges, and even the silence of time. When we look back at the entire journey of signs, challenges, and inner turmoil, one truth becomes clear. True love is more than an emotion, and even more than a choice based on superficial satisfaction. True love is a journey of spiritual transformation. Every deep encounter, every sign of synchronicity, every reflection from the other person is an invitation to turn inward, to face the light and dark parts of ourselves. Love, in its most primal form, does not come to make us happy easily. It comes to awaken, to cleanse, to transform. When we love someone not only with our heart, but also with our soul, when we see in them not only beauty, but also the cracks that reflect the unhealed pieces of ourselves, love becomes a path that leads us toward greater light. Every moment of love, every moment of vulnerability, every forgiveness and commitment is a step in the process of self-improvement. And so true love does not end with finding someone. It continues on a journey together, growing together, unraveling together, reaching the deepest levels of being together. If your heart is beating a little right now, if something is whispering that you are ready for that journey, then believe it. Because true love, love as a journey of spiritual transformation, always finds its way to those who are brave enough to listen to the call of their soul.